What's up, everybody? Luke Reimer back with the Fantasy Football Waiver Show. Yeah, usually if you're tuning in live, you usually hear you see Zach on. He's kind of spearheaded the Tuesday show. He's out at a concert. He's out having some fun right now. So he's enjoying life. Trevor also is out of town this week, so I'm taking over here. And you guys are going to notice we got a new face on. Ashton's a new guy with the company here. I think Ashton, we started probably right before football season started. I think this is your first show. So welcome on, man. It's good to have you. Given if anyone watching, give a little bit about yourself and obviously a football fan, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what losers? Zach wants to go touch grass. Forget that. I'm trying to sit inside, turn the curtains down, watch some football, man. That's what I'm about. Nah, man, I'm just kid from Tennessee. I like football, like fantasy football. I'm a nerd for it. I'm a Falcons fan, as you can see by the hat. But I was very surprised, very pleased with my guys on Sunday Night Football. We had McCarthy in the proverbial clamps, as it were. So bad that Kevin O'Connell made up an injury for him so he could start Carson Wentz. I'm just kidding. It's probably a very real injury. But yeah, man, excited to be on. Happy to write for the company. And I know me and you and Zach had talked about it. Looking forward to maybe putting out some DFS content in the future.
Yeah, that's actually something that's pretty interesting, right? Anyone who's listening, anyone watching after the fact, go to flurrysports.org. We have tons of football content out this year. We have weekly articles, start sit articles. We have waiver wire pickup. We have streaming options. We have survivor picks. And to add to that, Ashton doing a little bit of DFS stuff for us. So if your team sucks, like I have a league where my team is just you can already tell after week 2 it's just a bad draft. I wasn't in a great spot. I was kind of
that's my redraft team.
Kind of reach for guys I didn't really want, and didn't really make a team that I want. You can make it up easily with DFS, right? It kind of gives you an extra thing to root for. So Ashton, really appreciate you doing that. But as a Falcons fan, how in are you on Michael Penix, right? Because as an outsider, as a guy, so 2 years ago, Zach had Michael Penix. So we play college fantasy. He had him, and he destroyed me in the championship with Michael Penix and Roman Dunze. And so after that, I'm like, this guy is fucking awesome. I'm a Packer fan, so I don't really get the inside knowledge on it. But I would imagine as a Falcons fan, it's got to be a pretty fun for the future, right?
Yeah, the first time I ever ran into Penix was I was watching back when he was in Indiana. I was watching a game, and that was the game where he dove for the pylon and OT, and I was like, man, this kid in Indiana is nice. And then he pops up, tears his knee up, pops up a couple years later at Washington. He's torching the Pac-12, but who doesn't torch the Pac-12? But I mean, yeah, I like him. I think I had a lot of and friends that I played Dynasty with. We've had a Dynasty league going for 10 years. We take it really serious. Some guys in there that I really expect their evaluation and their opinions. They weren't as big on Michael Penix as I was, and I wasn't really huge on him either. But I think that through a couple starts, he's looked good. We're not, the Falcons aren't asking him to do too much. I think this week, I mean, that they just were like, hey, our defense is playing crazy. We're about to hand the ball off to Bijan and take it to the promised land. But I think in week 1, you kind of saw that when pressed, he can kind of punch back, especially against the Bucs and Baker Mayfield. Those games always turn out crazy between those two teams. I'm excited for him. At this point, we had to suffer through Desmond Ridder. We had to suffer through, Marcus Mariota. We had to suffer through, one-legged Kirk Cousins, which, also like Kirk, he was solid fantasy quarterback for a long time, but his time's done. I think. Interesting trade target maybe for the Bengals. We probably will get into that, or maybe not. I don't know, but but I'm excited for the future. I think we've got a really good offense, and the problem's never really been offense for the Falcons. It's always been a defensive thing that we just never have a pass rush. We never have whatever we need. I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. I still think that. We're a solid team. We, could win 9 games, might win 12. You never know. I don't think we're beating the Packers or the Eagles anytime soon. But I think the future's bright.
Good. Yeah, it's always interesting bringing someone on. And I love Zach and Trevor, but when we come out, all 3 of us are Packer fans, so it's kind of most of the stuff.
You guys just get a bubble going.
Right. So it's interesting to reach out and talk to fans who you don't really have a strong point of view on. I guess let's just get right into it. Right, we have a question right off the bat here. Richard, nice to have you back, man. Off of Twitter, should I drop Caleb Johnson? Caleb Johnson, obviously, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know that he's even recorded a fantasy point this year. Week 2, he was obviously coming in as one of those rookies, and there was a couple of them this year, right? We had we had like an RJ Harvey, a Jaden Blue kind of situation. Now we have a Caleb Johnson. I guess Jaden Blue kind of fits with Caleb Johnson here, but that they get put into the spot where maybe there's an opportunity for running back one stuff, and that just hasn't been the case, right? We haven't really seen him on the field yet. We've seen him in the kick return game, which didn't help him much at all. But at this point in the season, right, is week 2 a little early? Are you ready to give up on Caleb Johnson? Richard, I'm assuming this is redraft dynasty. This is no question you're keeping him on your team. But for redraft, like, is there, Ashton, I guess to ask you, is there any possibility, any realistic thing where you're looking in the future and like, I'm going to start Caleb Johnson this week?
It would take a lot. I think I'll say this. I dropped him in redraft this week. And my running backs are not good in that league. I think I'm trotting out Bill and Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, my running backs are not good. But I dropped him in redraft. I think he's a solid drop in redraft. If you've got good running backs already, like if you've got if you went like heavy RB start, like Derrick Henry, Chase Brown, or Derrick Henry, JT, I think you can hold on to him just on the chance that maybe it's week 10 and he kind of starts getting ramped up and maybe Kenneth Gainwell's hurt. Maybe Jalen Warren's hurt. You never know. The running back position is just really fragile. Guys get hurt all the time. So I think it just kind of is team dependent. If you're really strong at running back, maybe you just can kind of stash him and just see what happens. And if in 2 or 3 weeks he's not doing anything, then you can kind of let him go. But if you need somebody now, I would probably cut bait. Just try and find something on the waiver wire. Maybe one of these guys we're going to talk about is on your waivers, and you can go snatch them up and maybe get some serviceable weeks out of them.
Yeah, we can get into running backs to start here, but just off the top of my head, like say you're high on Caleb Johnson, you drafted him, you think that there's still a path for RB1 even after 2 weeks of nothing here. If you drop him this week, like how realistically is he going to be picked up within the next 2 weeks? Where if you really want him, you can probably get him back, right?
I think so. I think the not fielding a kickoff heard around the world is pretty bad enough that people are going to stay away from him, especially if you're in a more casual league. I think you can drop him and people are not really going to bat an eye. Now, if you're in a more serious league with some more sharp players, maybe they pick him up because they think the same way. Oh, I can stash this guy, something like that. But I think if you're playing in like home leagues, I think you can get rid of him and maybe you try and just drop him and find something else. If you have to stash him, you kind of got to do what you got to do at that point. I wouldn't wait too long, though. If by like week 5 we haven't really seen anything else, I'd probably cut bait sooner than later.
Yeah, I agree. Especially, I've seen it for most of my life with an Aaron Rodgers-led offense too, right? There is room for running back performances to come big, right? We kind of saw what Aaron Jones came out to be. It kind of feels like Jalen Warren is kind of that Aaron Jones kind of player, right? Rodgers does use his running backs, but to the most part, it almost feels like Caleb Johnson is kind of right now, at least, is kind of the torn or whatever he had, torn hamstring, torn Achilles, whatever, or stinger, AJ Dillon compared to the good Aaron Jones. So so Richard, I think you're fine to drop Caleb Johnson. Of course, you always have to ask your question who you're dropping him for, but realistically, probably anyone we talk about tonight he can be droppable for. And really anyone who you think can instantly like slide into your lineup if you need something is probably worth dropping Caleb Johnson for.
And I think format matters too, right? I think most people play PPR now, but if you're playing standard, don't just go drop him for like Jeremy McNichols or something like that. But if you're in a PPR league, I might pick up Jeremy McNichols. I don't know. We'll just I don't think Bill's getting a lot of pass down work anytime soon. So maybe he catches 5 or 6 dump offs.
Yeah,
it'd be better than whatever Caleb Johnson's giving you.
And that's actually interesting too, with Mariota seeming like he's probably going to see sometime this week, right? We know that you've seen it. Mariota, at least from what I've seen, is not necessarily a guy who's going to throw the ball into triple coverage every single play. Like it feels like at this kind of point in his career, he's going to take what the defense gives him. And maybe I'm overthinking that because I just remember him in Oregon not only throwing like 14 picks in 4 years, which Mariota's my favorite college quarterback ever. So
he was awesome.
So I love him. But yeah, I don't know. But let's we started the show off with the Falcons. Let's get right into the Falcons with a running back pickup with Tyler Algier. So on Sunday night last week, we saw Algier, I don't want to say he vultured a touchdown, right? Not that he vultured, he was in the game and scored the touchdown. But out of the 22 offensive snaps he was in, he carried the ball 17 times, touched the ball 17 times. And really, it's kind of an interesting mix, which I'd like to hear from a point of view of a Falcons fan. But given that Bijan Robinson has probably looked like one of the better running backs in the NFL this year, maybe the best running back in the NFL, that Algier is kind of keeping his name alive, right? So Algier finished 15 PPR points. He's definitely a guy who's always there when we're talking about handcuffs. A guy who's probably above at the top of those lists of who are the better RB2s to have in fantasy on their teams. Tyler Algier. So 15 PPR points doesn't really feel that sustainable, but it also doesn't feel like Tyler Algier should be on the waiver wire. Am I just talking crazy here, or do you agree?
No, I think you're on the right track. I think Algier is a really good, if nothing else, he's a really good stash, right? Like, kind of the same way in Johnson, but like plus, where like you can stash him if Bijan gets hurt. Algier's going to see probably the lion's share of the carries. Interesting note that I found when I was doing a little research for the show, Atlanta has the 10th highest neutral run rate in the league, 41.5% through 2 weeks. Not crazy, but still top 10 in that aspect. I think that they're being very intentional in getting Algier some touches to get the workload off Bijan. It's a marathon, not a sprint. They want to make sure and keep their guys as healthy and as fresh as possible throughout the rest of the year. So I really think that Tyler Algier, while he's kind of there to kind of just take the load off of Bijan a little bit, I think that he can have some standalone value, handcuffed with benefits type territory. In any case, I think he should definitely be rostered. And, if the range of outcomes that we saw Sunday night is in the cards for Atlanta, where the defense is just teeing off, I think they sacked McCarthy like 6 times, which made me happy. I was a pretty staunch anti-McCarthy guy coming out of college, but as
a Wisconsin and Packer fan, I'm staunch against JJ McCarthy too, so I'm with you on it.
I'm with friends. I think that Algier really is just going to – if this Falcons get in that same game script, I don't see a world where 15 PPR points is out of the realm of possibility. That might be a ceiling outcome for him. So maybe he's a play where he's a desperation Hail Mary. Maybe Algier falls in the end zone for me this week. But if that's all you – or if you're getting him for free off waivers and all he's costing you is a roster spot, I don't think that's the worst kind of guy to have on your roster. There's certainly worse guys to have on your roster. He's going to get touches every week. He's not going to get a ton of pass down work, but we're not that many years removed from Tyler Algier being a pretty good fantasy asset over the course of the season. So, yeah, for sure. And so I think that he's a good stash in case of an injury to Bijan, but I think he has some standalone value as well. I wouldn't feel great about starting him any given week, but if he gets 10, 12 carries, maybe he falls in the end zone and gets you 8, 9, 10 points. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Right. And this is almost a situation too, where you're the guy who had the 1, 2, 3 pick probably went Bijan Robinson, right? If you're high on the waiver order and you don't really like much, then pick up Algier and try to work out a trade, right? I'm sure that seeing Algier fall in the end zone, really curdles the blood of Bijan Robinson owners, and they're going to want him, right? It just, as you said, if any starting running back goes down, there's probably not a better handcuff than Tyler Algier, just given what we have seen from him as a lead back, and also what we've seen him as a number 2 back. Touching the ball last week on 17 of 22 offensive plays. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that Algier is going to come out and probably win you a week, but he's definitely a guy who should not be on waivers, right? There are a lot of different opportunities that you can use him with, whether that be a trade, whether that be a replacement fill-in. Or whether it be, you laugh at your buddy who has Bijan Robinson and say, now you have to give me, give me Devontae Adams for him or something like that. So that, it's always fun to fuck around with your friends, right?
For sure.
So it's a really interesting question that came up from Big Bills guy. What's up, boys? A couple of questions for you. How much fab would you be willing to spend on Tootin? So Tootin's actually been the next guy we talk about. So I'm happy that this is going to be a nice transition.
Perfect segue.
So let's, before we get into the second one here, let's just start with Tootin. Obviously, right, take Bigsby, heads to Philadelphia, which is an interesting, because that's they have the best running back in the NFL and the best running back room, loaded with 4 running backs who can probably start any. Oh, I'm not going to give that to A.J. Dillon, but Will Shipley and Tank Bigsby are both good players. What's interesting about Jacksonville is everyone kind of wrote off, right, the Trevor Lawrences and the Travis Etiennes of the world. And Etienne is coming in looking like probably right up there with Bijan Robinson is one of the better backs in the league right now, racking up yards. But the obvious reason to pick up a Tootin is that I mean he's the number 2 guy. Now it kind of feels like a little like a poor man's Tyler Algier, just because I mean how much do we really know of Tootin? But given that Jacksonville obviously wants to run the ball, we saw what Liam Cohen did with kind of Bucky Irving last year, how that kind of turned into that running back, throw him out in the flat and let him make a move a little bit, kind of work in with that Rashad White kind of power game. And that kind of feels like, again, Jackson kind of maybe has a poor man's Tampa Bay situation with that going on with ETN and Tootin. He did average 5 yards of carry when he was on the field last week. But again, as someone who, like you brought up, maybe you're really a little bit running back, heavy. Are you willing to spend a little bit on Tootin here?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I don't know, 5-6% maybe is pretty reasonable. Maybe a little bit more. Just kind of depends on, again, like your roster construction. For me personally, I did not love Tootin as a prospect. I thought he was kind of. I will say the one thing going for Tootin was he was one of the few guys in this class that had juice. It seemed like every running back I watched was just like, I'm going to get you 15 yards, and that's it. I'm not taking it to the house. And it made me like sit there and be like, I miss watching Kenneth Walker as a prospect, because Kenneth Walker gets that second level. See ya, goodbye. Yeah. I think Tootin. I think maybe he's is a little undersold as an Algier, because I think there's a path. ETN right now has been awesome and he's been great, but we've seen ETN kind of be, fluctuate up and down a little bit in his career. I don't think that it's outside of the realm of possibility, outside of the outcomes for Tootin to kind of supplant ETN by the end of the year, maybe fantasy playoff time. May not happen this year, maybe next year, but I think that at the very least, he's a really good back to have on your roster because he's explosive. ETN, he battled injuries last year, so he's not exactly this Iron Man who never gets hurt. So I really think that having guys like Tootin on your roster is good. As far as the second part of that question goes, I think that's a really interesting discussion point, because you're almost like, Olave's kind of, thank you for throwing that back up there. Olave and Travis Hunter is a really good talking point. I think that for me, I lean Olave for the sole purpose of he is getting a lot of first read targets. It's basically him and Jawan Johnson in New Orleans, which is funny to say. But I think that, he's already seen like 23 targets this year. He had 13 week 1. Yeah, 13 week 1 and 10 last week against San Francisco. Seattle is maybe a little bit tougher matchup than especially Arizona was in week 1. But I think he's going to get enough looks his way. We kind of saw the Jekyll and Hyde thing with Hunter this week, where first week he played a lot of snaps on offense, and then Jaguars have a corner get hurt middle of the game on this week, and he starts taking a lot of reps on defense, and he wasn't playing as much on offense. Parker Washington had a pretty big game for what he normally does. So I think in that aspect, obviously it's been a week. The Jaguars are going to plan for not having, not being down a corner. Whether Hunter factors into that plan on defense or not, who knows? But for me, I think I like riding with a guy who's going to see a lot of first read wide receiver 1 targets, even if he maybe has a tougher matchup. I think give me Olave in that aspect.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, right? When we're talking about fantasy football, we're always looking at the opportunity, right? Who's the one who's going to see the ball the most? Who's going to have the ball in their hands the most? To your point, it feels like Olave is probably that guy. So I hate Spencer Rattler. I hate Kellen Moore. I hate the Saints in general. But to your point, right? Olave is that number 1 option, outside of Alvin Kamara. They're that team that's going to be down, that's going to need to pass the ball. And when they pass the ball, who do you throw it to? You throw it to your best receiver, or you throw it to Jawan Johnson. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's an awesome football player. I think Deion Sanders kind of molded him into like a Deion Sanders Jr. But we're kind of in a situation where, anytime you start a new job, right, you get into a situation where you kind of have to figure out a routine. And to your point, like we saw Travis Hunter kind of spend majority of his time on offense in week 1, play a little bit more defense. How long is it going to be before Jacksonville figures out that sweet spot of, here we want to use him this much on offense and still be able to, have him in at the end of games to take out number 1, number 2 receivers. So I think Jacksonville's still playing with that. That being said, I don't really love that as a fantasy football, as a fantasy football projection as anything on my team. I've always said, when we talk about fantasy football, having questions, I'd rather have no questions than questions, right? So there are questions around Olave, but I think there's a lot more around Hunter. So I'm with you. I think Olave is fine. The other thing I don't like about Travis Hunter is, right, Brian Thomas did not look great last week. He's kind of alligator arming the ball. He didn't really look like what we saw out of him last year. I'm almost wondering if Liam Cohen comes in and say, let's get the ball to Brian Thomas. We know how good this guy is. We need to get his confidence up. Let's try to, at least force him the ball just a little bit to start the game. And of course, that's going to eat into Travis Hunter. So yeah, I agree with you. I'm with Olave and Bill's guy. To Ashton's point, I think 5% of your fab that's fine on Tootin as a guy who's probably going to see opportunities. I think that's a great. It's probably a great value, right? To whatever Zach always says, fantasy football again, it's all about value where you can find it, and picking up a running back who's going to see snaps for 5% fab. I think you're fine with that. All right, let's hit do quarterbacks. How about that? Just because, let's have some fun with everybody's favorite quarterback. I guess we can call him, right, poor man's Josh Allen. Daniel Jones. I'm still his name. Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has the Colts cooking right now, which love him or hate him, it kind of feels somewhat like a Sam Darnold situation where a guy who's just kind of written off is kind of, I'm not going to say that the Colts are Super Bowl contenders. I'm not even going to say they're playoff contenders, but they're having fun, right? The boys are playing football. It's a Sam Darnold, Geno Smith kind of situation. Daniel, I'll say it, he's been playing good football. Is this a situation where maybe you have a Burrow go down? Maybe you have, you drafted a Purdy, he went down. Maybe you waited on quarterback and McCarthy goes down. It's hard to say that Daniel Jones is not the number one quarterback pickup this week, right?
For sure. Yeah, I think he is definitely top cream of the crop when it comes to pickups this week at the quarterback position. Really, who else are you going to pick up? I mean, we talked about Michael Penix, but I think I would rather have Jones's ceiling. Just going down just the general guys who are available. We're talking about Jake Browning. We're talking about, maybe Marcus Mariota, maybe Mac Jones. That's a lot of gross names there. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it a spade. Like you said, Daniel Jones and the Colts cooking. They QB3 and QB5 in his two starts so far this year. The first one not as surprising because it was against the Cardinals, right? Week 2 though against the Broncos, that one really surprised me. The Broncos are we're like the best defense basically on EPA last year, and he lit them up for 309.3 yards per attempt. That's pretty solid numbers no matter who you're playing. Jones obviously adds an element in the ground game, kind of like you guys said, poor man's Josh Allen. It's really funny because I always caught a lot of flack in our Dynasty League for being a huge Josh Allen guy. I was really staunch. I never gave up, never surrendered, and I did the same thing with Daniel Jones, and it would just be so funny if Daniel Jones ended up being a thing in the long run. But, I think you can definitely do worse. I'm always on the side of if I didn't get quarterback figured out early, I'm just going to stream all year and pick up who I can. Daniel Jones, perfect streamer, pick him up. He plays great for 5 games. If he starts to pumpkin, you grab somebody else. That's
for sure. And it's in a situation too where Jonathan Taylor's leading the NFL in rushing yards, so there is a run game to help offset that pass game to help those two work hand in hand. Tyler Warren looks awesome. I'm not going to say he's Brock Bowers last year, but as a rookie tight end who. Rookie tight ends, I guess I comment on a resurgence, right, of Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, and now Tyler Warren. But really, rookie tight ends don't really do much in the NFL. And then Michael Pittman is still a good receiver that people have fallen off of, which I get it. I'm a Josh Downs guy. I think there's players around Daniel Jones to help him, continue this 15 to 25 point window that feels there. To your point, though, against the Broncos defense, who everyone's lauded as the best defense, I'm right there. Led the league in sacks last year. There's tons of talent on that defense. Daniel Jones threw, I think, 300 yards in that game, right?
For sure, yeah, he did.
It's really interesting. It's really a gross pick when we look at the timeline of Daniel Jones' career. But we're coming to a point where, if I drafted Joe Burrow in the 4th round, shit, what do I do? There's someone who's probably a floor of 16, 17 points sitting there.
probably the same, if not better, floor than Joe Burrow was giving you anyway.
Right. So again, that opportunity is there. That Daniel Jones, I know it's hard to rely on him to really win a week, right? We want to see it over a season-long period, but I don't necessarily know that he loses you a week moving forward.
Yeah, I think with Daniel Jones, there's always the fear that those Giants days come back and those turnovers, those fumbles start talking to him like the Green Goblin mask. But I think that he's done well enough, and I think Shane Steichen's kind of coaching him in a way of like, look, we don't need you to be Superman, we don't need you to be the guy, we just need you to play point guard. And I think to what you brought up about Josh Downs, I think part of what is hurting Downs is because Downs and Pittman to a lesser extent kind of operate in the same areas that Tyler Warren's operating in, and he's getting a lot of those underneath. He's playing like a very similar, like George Kittle, Tyler Kraft kind of. I'm going to get the ball and I'm just going to bowl over people until somebody stops me, and it's not going to be somebody quickly. So it's interesting that you bring up, like you say, Bowers, because he's more of like down the field, kind of over the middle kind of guy. But yeah, Warren's awesome. This Colts passing game is great, and then you've got Alec Pierce running wind sprints down the sideline and catching balls. Like, I mean, it's a tough offense to defend, especially when Jonathan Taylor's running like he is.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely a team where it's probably the surprise team of the year right now, and I know Daniel Jones is a big part of that. But Shane Steichen's got the boys going. I mean, they're hitting game-winning field goals now. As should the Colts be 2-0? I think that's up for debate. Is a stupid penalty for the Broncos, but I mean that's not to say that Daniel Jones has been great this year. We mentioned Penix a little bit. We'll get into these questions. Let's do some questions. So who? See you. I think it's the copper, right? That's the chemical, whatever. I think I got a C in chemistry in high school.
I did do great.
Yeah, not a science guy, but start two. Cool. See you. Let us know your format of your league. I'm going to assume it's probably half PPR, right? That's kind of feels like what the masses play. Drake London, Rome Odunze, Devontae Adams. Also, should I be dropping Kyren or hold on to him? You're keeping Kyren. He's a starting running back on one of the better offenses in the NFL. You have to keep him. I guess it honestly depends on what you're getting. See you. Let us know if you have thrown any offers out and who you would try to move Kyren for. But off the top of my head, right, we saw Rome Odunze come in with a big week last week against against a fine defense with Detroit. 2 touchdowns. I'm sure he won a lot of people the week, and see his full PPR. It really feels like to me, if we're talking full PPR, you're getting 1 point per reception. That the 2 guys in this who are going to get receptions the most are probably Drake London and Devontae Adams, right? Does Rome Odunze's big playability more so than London and Tay Adams swing you to one of those guys? To me, this is easy. London and Adams. I don't really trust the Chicago Bears offense. I think Caleb Williams he can play, but I think he's scared right now. I think Ben Johnson's coming in trying to big dick everyone, and it doesn't really feel like he's that kind of guy yet. So I'm not willing to be scared of Drake London. As he hasn't really kind of lived up to that round 2, round 3 selection yet, or Devontae Adams, who's wide receiver 2, which I still love because he's seen number 2 coverage all year. But to me, Drake London and Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I think Devontae Adams is the obvious one here that you want to start for sure. I mean, he's going to get a ton of looks. Matthew Stafford for his entire career has been making wide receivers. Not to say Devontae Adams has been the guy since he figured out how to play when he was early on with the Packers. But yeah. I think that Stafford just kind of elevates receivers. He always has when it comes to fantasy game. I think London and Rome is close. And the reason, especially if on a 1-week sample, this week specifically, I think is close, is because when you look at the matchups, the Falcons are playing the Panthers and the Bears are playing the Cowboys. So if I'm playing this as a 1-week sample with those matchups, I think I lean Rome. And the reason being is the Cowboys just got torched by Russell Wilson. And while the Bears have not been great, they have been good on the scripted stuff, and Rome Odunze has been running basically as their one. There's even been talk about DJ Moore may be on his way out of town. I don't know how what credence there is to that, but it hurts me to say that I don't want to start Drake London over Rome Odunze. But I think that if you look at the game environments, to me, there's a much better chance that Cowboys Bears turns into a shootout. Panthers Falcons might, but on the same end, there's if the Falcons bring that same defense,
I don't disagree.
Carolina, and they've got 3 starting linemen hurt, there's a chance that They do the same thing. Penix throws the ball 20 times. London maybe gets 6 targets, and they just kind of mud stomp the Panthers, with basically no opposition. So I think that if we're playing the game environment game, I want to take a Dunze and Devontae Adams, but I'm not mad if you want to start Drake London over Rome.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. This kind of feels like a Falcons game where it's win and get out with it without anything crazy happening, right? Not that was last week, but that kind of felt like how they played last week, right? To your point, Penix only throwing 20 times. It kind of felt, let's just give the ball to our best player. Let's let him do what he does and get out of town without anything crazy happening, which worked. So why change the game script against another inferior opponent this week?
For sure, Bijan off tackle all day, baby. That's all you need.
Right. That stretch, yeah. You just get him to space, man. And then are you worried about Kyren Williams at all? I mean, he scored week 1. We saw Corum score last week. As a guy who this is my first year ever having Kyren Williams, I've been killed by him like the last 3 years. I want him to have that goal line running back in a Sean McVay offense. I think is as valuable as almost probably within a top 6 to 10 running back that you can have in fantasy football. Now, if you're shopping it to a guy who needs running back and you can get a wide receiver 2 and a running back 1/2 back, maybe I'm thinking about it. But are you going out and actively trying to shop Kyren Williams right now?
I don't mind shopping him, but I think the issue with trying to shop him right now is other owners are going to look at him kind of like you are. It's like, oh, he's had kind of 2 weeks where he's not been great. Just looking ahead of the schedule, they go to Philly this week, then they get to stay home against the Colts and the 49ers, then they go to Baltimore, to Jacksonville, and then they have the bye week. But then after the bye week, they get a stretch of teams that are a lot softer against the run. You've got New Orleans, you play San Fran again, but then you've got the Seahawks, the Bucks, the Panthers. So that's a 5-game stretch right there in the kind of the meat of the season. I wouldn't panic too much on Kyren yet. It was weird seeing Blake Corum get snaps because they've talked for years about getting other guys involved, and suddenly they actually did it, which was crazy. His snap rate did go from 82% to 70% in week 2. Could be a game script thing. Maybe he's got a little banged up. Who knows? Maybe Corum just had the hot hand. I wouldn't panic too yet on Kyren. I definitely wouldn't feel great if they came out against the Eagles and had another kind of just performance. But I think right now, unless you're getting something good in return, if someone comes in return and is like, hey, I'll give you I don't know, like ETN, Bill Merritt, someone that we know is going to get a lot of work. And I'm not even a huge Bill guy, but he's going to get a lot of rushing work. Chris Rodriguez probably eats into his total, but I mean, Chris Rodriguez was a healthy scratch first 2 weeks. So how worried are we really about him?
Right.
I just think it really kind of, like you said, just depends on what you're getting for Kyren.
Yeah. I'm just going to reiterate one more time. I think Kyren has those opportunities, right, that we've seen the last 3 years out of him where, he is as big of anyone that can kind of come out and give you a 3-touchdown game. I don't know that you can say that about many other running backs in the NFL. Now, is it a situation where maybe, he puts up another stinker this week and then you hold on to him I want just one more week out of him, see if it works, and he comes out for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns or something? Are you trying to shop him at his highest value then? You probably get a little bit more for him, or maybe that's a hold on. And, of course, this is, once you figure out what your team actually is, come week 4, week 5, that's probably a different conversation. But I think right now, to your point, that if you're shopping him probably as low as he's going to be, just thinking what we've seen out of him in the past. So I don't think right now is the time to shop him. If you really don't want him, wait for him to score that touchdown in a 100-yard week.
Yeah, for sure. I like to think of fantasy as stock market. You definitely don't want to sell low.
Yep.
Hold on to him. Yeah, you invested, second, third round pick into him, but at this point, I think you just kind of ride it out and see if he can get it figured out.
Yep, cool. Patrick, what's going on, man? I'm having a brain fart here. Remind me LM scoring, but was offered CD and RJ Harvey for Chase Brown, Zach Charbonnet, and Tet. Thoughts? 12 person PPR. Keepers 2 wide receiver, 2 running back. Flex RB, team Chase Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zach Charbonnet, Tyler Warren, Cam Scatterbo, Michelle Tootin, Brian Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Tet, Egbuka, and Coleman. So really, to me, right off the bat here, is Chase Brown. I think I'm totally off the Bengals. Like even winning 2 games, Joe Burrow goes down. They've been winning ugly games. Does that change to a run game? I don't know that the Bengals offensive line is good enough to sustain a running back that you're confidently going to start every week. Ted, I like a lot. He's kind of looked good in the first 2 weeks. But is it like a CeeDee Lamb? Like CeeDee Lamb's a start. He's the guy that you're going to slot into your lineup. You're not even going to think about it. On any given week, he's going to give you 100 yards and a touchdown on 8-9 receptions. It feels like CeeDee Lamb is too good to not really think about in this, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, okay, so I'm getting the better receiver, I think. And I'm like you. I don't love Chase Brown's situation going forward. I really don't like Zach Charbonnet's situation because that seems like a place where they're just going to ride the hot hand and good luck trying to figure out who that is every week. I was a staunch anti-Harvey guy, but, running back at the end of the day is a game of opportunity. And we've seen J.K. Dobbins be injured before, and, there's a chance that R.J. Harvey gets it figured out week 7, week 8, comes out after the bye, whenever their bye is, and kind of just supplants Dobbins. So I think I'd like getting CeeDee and R.J. Harvey. I love CeeDee Lamb for what it's worth.
Agreed.
He's been disappointing the first 2 weeks of the season. He's still wide receiver 12 in my main dynasty league. So if wide receiver 12 is disappointing, that kind of tells you all you need to know about the player.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page. Like CeeDee is just too good of a player to not really think about. I know you probably drafted Chase Brown high, but I mean, right now might be the best time to get rid of Chase Brown if someone wants him. If the Bengals, and Bengals aren't really that great of a team. If they lose 2 or 3 games in a row here, it's really hard for running backs to make up if they're playing down. So yeah, I'm with you. I think CeeDee's the guy here who puts it over the edge.
And I think too, if RJ Harvey's not doing something for you, running back is a position that has enough turnover. You can figure it out in a week or two because somebody will get hurt. Just looking at his roster, maybe Tyrone Tracy goes down and Scatabo is getting all the work, or he's got Tootin on his roster already. Maybe Etienne gets hurt. Boom, he's got his replacement right there. And for what it's worth, I don't mind Jaylen Warren. I think that Jaylen Warren's a great guy to have right now. It's kind of funny that I heard talk about that he was kind of taking the Najee Harris role, and that Kenneth Gainwell was now playing the Jaylen Warren role. I haven't looked at shares and opportunities and stuff like that to look, but I think Warren's been awesome. He's going to get a lot of work still, and Aaron Rodgers loves to throw to his running backs, and he's going to have a guy in there that he trusts. That's part of the reason why Caleb Johnson's not playing. He doesn't trust him to protect him when he's got blitzers coming at him.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Let's keep hitting questions here. Keep asking questions if you're on. Watching live, you're watching after the fact, throw some questions in the comments. We will certainly get to them all. We want to make some money. We want you guys to make some money. We all want to make some money. I mean, that's what life's about, right? Is making money and having some fun.
Absolutely.
And watching some ball with the boys. This is a fun one because I'm a Packer fan and I love Tucker Kraft like no tomorrow. Waiver wire, crazy at Tucker Kraft's on the waiver wire.
That's insane.
Yeah. So how much fab do you drop on him? I'm dropping, if you can reasonably do it, I think 25% of your budget, probably even more than that. I think Tucker Kraft is worth it, especially Jaden Reed is going to be out a very long time. Going down with a broken collarbone. We have seen this Packers receiving core. So I talked about it pre-draft stuff. It's really hard to really say that one Packers receiver is going to really be that 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown guys because they're all 600-yard, 6 touchdown guys. With Jaden Reed out, that opens up so many opportunities for the Tucker Krafts of the world. Now I know that they're using Tucker Kraft very well to see even more. To your point, that Tyler Warren role, that George Kittle role, that's what Tucker Kraft is playing in this Matt LaFleur run-heavy offense, where you just give the ball to him and he runs through a motherfucker's face, right? And Tucker Kraft is awesome. He's going to continue to find the end zone. I like I said, I think 30%, even if you go up to 40%, I don't hate that because this is a guy that you're going to be starting every single week of the rest of the year. I guess other than week 5 when they have a bye. But Dogo Devil. If you really question the tight end position, if you drafted George Kittle, and you need a tight end, you're not going to get much better on the waiver wire than Tucker Kraft, right?
You're not. I mean, if Jawan Johnson's also on your waiver wire, but obviously it's Kittle over Jawan Johnson, but I don't mind in that situation if both are on your waivers, you put in a claim for both and hope you get one. Kraft's awesome, man. And to your point, none of the Packers receivers, they all rotate. None of them are going to be a 1,000-yard, 10-touchdown guy. The one guy that is always on the field, Tucker Kraft.
Yeah.
So he's the one constant. outside of Josh Jacobs, obviously, on the field for the Packers. And man, the Packers look good. And I've got a couple, a friend of mine that I really think knows ball. He kind of came out first week of the season, said Packers Super Bowl. And after 2 weeks, I'd hate to argue with him. They've looked like one of the best teams in the NFL for sure.
Yeah. To your point, Tucker Kraft, Matt LaFleur, it's very obvious that, right, since he came in, since, that transition between Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, that the focus of his offense has been running the ball, and he's been doing that incredibly, scheming up, different run plays to kind of set up those passes. We saw it last week with Jordan Love kind of taking a lot of deep shots. But week one, it was run the ball, take the short routes. Tucker Kraft is awesome run blocking. So he's going to be on the field every single play of the game. I think you're fine. I think, honestly, spend what you think. If you spend what you think and spend a little bit more than that, because again, he's going to be a guy who's going to be in your lineup every single week.
I probably wouldn't go above 50%, but I mean, even at 50%, if I'm getting a for sure, I think tight end 1 rest of the season.
Yeah. And tight end is that weird position where you either have a guy or you don't, and you're trying to figure it out. If you have Tucker Kraft, you have a guy. You put him in your lineup, don't think about it. Let's do a fun running back one here, right? Hudson George, welcome back, brother. We got Hampton, Aaron Jones, Bill Krosky-Merritt, Brian Robinson, Tyrone Tracy as running backs. Jamar Chase, Drake London, Brian Robinson, and McMillan as wide receiver, full point PPR. Should I trade or look for running back help on the waivers? So right, you probably coming into this week, or you probably came into the season like, I'm not going to say overdrafted Amari and Hampton, but after the first 2 weeks, it's looking like overdraft, right? You're not happy with your running backs. I understand that. I would love to upgrade that running back room. Aaron Jones, after an injury, it kind of feels like Kevin O'Connell really wants to make Jordan Mason the guy. Bill Krosky-Merritt, I still think that his best work comes between the 20s. And even with Austin Eckler out, I think Chris Rodriguez probably takes over that goal line work. Brian Robinson, he's probably not going to see the field with Christian McCaffrey on the field. And Tyrone Tracy has kind of been a little bit of a disappointment after the first 2 weeks. So you really don't have that RB1, that solid guy who's going to get you 15 to 20 points. So yeah, and you definitely look for running back help, but with Chase, Drake London, and Brian Thomas. Sorry.
Wake up.
Sorry. With Chase, London, Brian Thomas, and Ted McMillan, there's definitely some opportunity to move one of those receivers to, like, if you don't have a running back, someone probably is overloaded at running back. If is it a 1-on-1 trade? Maybe. I'm interested to see. This is one to me where you have to look at who's the running back, who has those running backs in your league, who can afford to give up a starting running back, and what you're going to give for him. So looking here, I mean, is this a situation, Ashton? And I love to get crazy with trades, right? Who doesn't love to get crazy with trades? You're not selling him high, but we all, just by name recognition alone, is this maybe you trade a Jamar Chase for a running back and something else here?
I don't hate it. And the reason I don't hate it is there's a lot of unknown with Jake Browning coming in. Obviously Chase is not going to have Joe feeding him 14, 15, 16 targets a game. I was thinking Chase, maybe Tet. I think there's enough questions around London and Brian Thomas Jr. right now that I think people might be scared of them.
Right.
But I think that Tet McMillan is probably not a bad trade candidate to consider. He's only played 2 weeks. He's looked great those 2 weeks. He's really the only receiver the Panthers got. I mean, Hunter Renfrow, the ghost of Hunter Renfrow, came in and scored twice this week, but Xavier Legette's an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
I think if you can reasonably trade Tet for something, I don't know. I mean, I think that of that 4-pack, he's probably got the most, other than Jamar, obviously. I think he's got the most hype around him right now. And the Panthers could start getting in really ugly games a lot this year and just air it out. Bryce Young threw the ball 59 times on Sunday. Right. So volume is king, but I don't, if you're having to sell one of those guys to try and help out your running back room, I think Chase or Tet is where you go. Just for the fact of, if you're giving somebody Chase, you can say, hey, I'm giving you Jamar Chase. You have to give me something good back.
Right.
You can kind of just, let your nuts hang. You want Jamar Chase, you got to come buy him kind of deal. because I don't Hampton. I think the Chargers have been really surprising as far as their pass rate goes. I think they're number one in pass rate over expected so far this year. Yeah, I think you maybe look at Chase and Tet. If it's like you said, surely there's a team in the league that kind of needs some help at wide receiver. Maybe they've got AJ Brown and like Jameson Williams, and they're drowning. They need somebody. It's all league dependent. So just go shop, see what you can figure out, try and play the game. But I think of that 4-pack, I try and shop maybe Chase and Tet just because I think they've got the most value. And London, I think, is fine, but I think Brian Thomas is the one of those four that might be the hardest to try and sell right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think this through in my head, right? If we're talking about fantasy football being a stock market, and Hudson, I'm curious on your record because I don't, we're only 2 weeks into the season, but I know nobody wants to be. If you're 0-2, nobody wants to be 0-3. But is this a week where maybe you play it out to see, and maybe Brian Thomas comes, gets back up to what he was, and he goes 10 for 100 and a touchdown, or 10 for 125 or something, and then maybe we can shop him when he has a little bit more value, right? It kind of feels like that way for Drake London too. If you're really, I don't want to get rid of Jamar Chase, I think you might have to be the guy that it's like, maybe I need to take a loss here to kind of move, to take a loss to move forward in the future. Excuse me. But yeah, to your point, like, I mean, Hampton is just not the guy right now. Not to say that he's not going to be the guy in the future. He's a rookie running back. Again, you got to figure out a routine. People don't like Najee Harris. I'm probably too high on Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris is fine. I think the Chargers think he's fine, which really kind of eats into that Hampton being the workhorse guy that we know he can be. So yeah, I think look for running back help. Check out our waiver wire pickups. We'll have a streamer running back article too if you just want some help for this week and try to figure it out next week, Hudson. But I mean, I float Jamar Chase's name out there, see what happens. Not necessarily don't trade him, but let's just see what you can get for him. Because I'm really.
I mean, if somebody really just wants to buy Jamar Chase and comes at you with like, I don't know, they come at you with like.
What about like a Chuba Hubbard?
Yeah, I was going to say the Panthers want to run the ball. The only thing about Chuba is I think that maybe he gets scripted out sometimes. He catches passes, but I kind of worry about him in that aspect. Maybe they come at you and they say, hey, let me give you this like pretty good running back and this pretty good wide receiver. Maybe like Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's kind of weird right now too. It's funny. I'm literally drawing a blank. Michael Pittman. Let's say they come to you with like Michael Pittman and Alvin Kamara, something like that. I don't love it on its face. It sounds really gross. It's going to look bad. You're probably going to get roasted in your league chat. But if you're really weak at running back, I think that helps you out a lot. And Chase, I'm not saying he's going to just disappear because Joe Burrow's hurt. He's still going to get his. He's, for my money, the best receiver in the league. He's definitely at least top 2. But if you really, that running back room does need some help. I think Kamara's a safe. We know he's going to get a lot of touches every week. The Saints are going to rely on him, Chris Olave, and a combination of Shaheed and Juwan Johnson. So I think that something of that nature, getting 2 pretty good players for one elite player in that aspect really helps you out a lot.
Yeah. I agree. Hudson, I know we didn't really give you a definite answer. It's hard to give a definite answer just because we don't know what other teams will look like. But if you decide to do something, let us know. We'll be on our stream to give a schedule. We're going to do our Packer show. Me, Trevor, and Zach are going to do Lombardi Sweep on Wednesday. But we'll have our whole flagship fantasy football show on Thursday. Hudson, if you make a move by then, let us know. If you think of something else by then, let us know. And if you make a move before the season, come back on Tuesday. Let us know because I'm interested to see if you float Chase out there just to see what happens here. We got one more question here, and the Smitty 0-2. It's tough. This sucks being 0-2, right? This is what, like, fantasy football. Maybe a year ago, I ranked like the 5 greatest, non-necessities in the world. I think fantasy football was number 1, where fantasy football is just like the greatest thing ever, right? And we prepared since February to really, we're diving into drafts. We want players. We want this. 0-2 sucks. It's just such a heartbreaker. And he's in a 2-quarterback league with Jaden Daniels, who's probably not going to play this week, or even if he does play with the guy who runs so much, having a sprained knee is not that great of an injury for him. Brock Purdy, who's going to be out. Cam Ward, Spencer Rattler are backup quarterbacks. Running backs, Travion Henderson, which at this point, through 2 weeks is not looking great. David Montgomery, who I know he scored last week, but again, he hasn't been the David Montgomery that we've seen over the last couple years. Brian Robinson, who we talked, I mentioned, really how much of a role does he have with Christian McCaffrey? James Conner, who I think is fine. Bill Merritt, question marks, but there's work. Browning and Matt. So he's saying Merritt, Browning, and Mac Jones are on the waiver wire. Who would you prioritize? What order? So I think it really comes down to how much you feel about Spencer Rattler, right? I don't necessarily know that you're coming into a week thinking that Jake Browning and Mac Jones are better, or you're going to start them over Cam Ward. Maybe they finish higher, but just thinking in terms of who the better players are, who has the situation. Like Cam Ward's probably locking on your team. I hate Spencer Rattler. I'm not starting him, so I'm definitely going for a quarterback here. I don't know. Like Jake Brown, Kyle Shanahan's always wanted Mac Jones. He finally got him. He kind of ran Trey Lance out of the league because he wanted Mac Jones that much. So I'm taking Mac Jones over Jake Browning, who Mac Jones, was fine last week. He kept the 49ers alive, kept them winning games. But Ashton, my question to you is, as someone who needs a quarterback, are you willing to take a risk and put a bid in for Merritt and risk not getting either of these quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback league?
I think in 2-quarterback league, you definitely want to prioritize having 2 quarterbacks. That's the biggest thing. Even if you've got someone pretty stinky like a Spencer Rattler, Cam Ward's not been great for fantasy right now. I think Mac Jones provides a pretty safe floor. I don't think he's going to – Kyle Shanahan's not going to ask him to do too much. He's just going to say, hey, just get the ball in Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall's hands, CMC's hands, and just let them go to work. I think Browning and Rattler are interesting, though, just because I think Rattler specifically can find success. He put up 29 points this past week. This is for reference, this is a league, my main dynasty league. I'm just checking Sleeper. It is a 6-point passing touchdown league, so probably scored a lot less in your leagues. But I think that he might be able to get into enough crazy shootouts that maybe he's serviceable for you, because you're not asking him to be good. You're asking him to score fantasy points. Kind of the same way with Jake Browning. I think Mac Jones is the safe play where you can plug Mac Jones in and you're like, all right, Mac Jones is going to get me probably 10 to 16 points a week, and I know that for sure. And that's a great place to be in. Sometimes, especially if you've got a guy like Jaden Daniels who might, run off for 30 on a week. I think Rattler's interesting just because the schedule coming up for him, he's got Seattle this week, but then they go at Buffalo, home against New York, home against New England, at Chicago, who's probably the worst defense in the league right now, and home against Tampa Bay. That's a really friendly stretch for quarterback. Bills, they can kind of get after the passer a little bit, but I think, and the Giants' defensive line's no joke, but Dak tore them up. New England, Miami tore them up. Chicago, they're going to be Jalen Johnson's probably out for the year. They can't rush the passer. Anyone's going to score. I can score fantasy points against the Bears. And in Tampa Bay, they sometimes can play defense, sometimes not. They just lost Yancey. They're one of their D tackles, DNs. They just lost him for the year. Yep. I think that Rattler, after this 1 week against the Seahawks, runs into a really friendly stretch of games. And I think that can at least get you to when Purdy comes back, and then I think you can kind of float from there. But if you really just don't want to deal with Rattler, I think picking up Mac Jones is not a terrible idea. He's going to be a safe floor guy for you. But I don't hate starting Spencer Rattler for a couple games until Purdy or Daniels one gets right.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't hate that. And sorry, I was looking at, because I want to bring this up real quick. Not that I was ignoring you. I was looking back at our chat because Zach told me what concert he was going to be, and I was going back to that. Zach's at concert. He's at Quinn concert in Madison. So I know Quinn is one of his favorites. So shout out Zach. I think sounds like he's having a good time. But to your point, right? You probably need the 2 quarterbacks in a 2-quarterback league. So I mean, to me, it's a dealer's choice. Like Spencer Rattler's fine. Again, they're probably going to be playing from behind, so that opportunity is there for more passing, right? So yeah, I'm with you. I think I agree with you, Ashton. So let's hit Nino. Nino's I believe Nino's a regular on the show. He's with us last couple of years. So this is an interesting one because Troy Franklin is actually going to be part of the wide receiver. We talk about we'll whip through wide receivers and tight ends quickly and get out of here within an hour, a little bit over an hour here. But if you have any more questions, keep throwing them away. We'll make sure we get to all the questions. Troy Franklin or Ramondre Stevenson are worth number one priority, or are you waiting out a week? Wide receiver and running backs right now. Christian McCaffrey, Chase Brown, RJ Harvey, Isaiah Pacheco, Trey Benson. Receivers, Malik Neighbors, Jacoby Myers, Alec Ayamaner, Stephon Diggs, and Josh Downs. So Eilick is also another receiver we can bring up. So let's talk about both Franklin and Eilick right now. To me, I think I'm still taking Ramondre Stevenson over it. Like Ramondre Stevenson, I was trying to tell people that Travion Henderson is not going to be the workhorse running back in this offense. He's going to be that rookie who's that change of pace guy. I mean, he's returning kicks in the preseason. They just, he's a guy who's a change of pace, just get the ball in his hands and do what he can. Ramondre Stevenson is a good running back. He's a starting running back for Mike Vrabel-led offense who is going to run the ball. We've seen it before, right, where these rookies come in and they're not really getting right until middle to end of the season where they can really kind of have their whole feet wet, have their whole body wet. So Ramondre Stevenson is still, if he's on waivers, I think he's probably the number one pickup for most people, right?
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think Ramondre is, like you said, he's still going to get the lion's share of the work for probably at the bare minimum the next 8-10 weeks. Henderson, I wasn't a huge Henderson guy coming out. I feel like I'm the flame and take guy here, but I just thought he was fine. I didn't love him. Didn't feel very strongly about him one way or another. He's got juice though. That is nice. And Ramondre, he can catch the ball. That was one thing coming out of Oklahoma that was like, this guy, he's big. He can run. He can catch. He kind of does a lot of stuff. That hasn't exactly had that workload in the NFL yet, but I think in that set, yeah, I do like picking up Ramondre. For his team specifically, I don't hate maybe passing on Ramondre just because he's kind of strong. I don't want to say he's strong at running back, but he's got solid options at running back already, whereas after Jacoby, it's kind of a, do you want to take the chance on Alec Ayamaner, Diggs, Josh Downs? Not to say that Troy Franklin's any better of an option than those guys. I think I still start Diggs over Troy Franklin for what it's worth.
Agreed.
Yeah, actually, I talked myself out of it. I think you go Ramondre. You can never have too many good running backs. Position's fragile. There's no law that says you can't flex a running back. I do it in DFS every week.
Yep.
So I think that Ramondre there is my pickup as well.
Yep. Just to play devil's advocate on Troy Franklin for a little bit. Not that I'm advocating for him because I'm with you. I'm on Ramondre Stevenson. Troy Franklin has kind of been that guy, right? Marvin Mims has really kind of not been the guy this year yet that we kind of want him to be. Troy Franklin has been on the field a little bit. 6 targets week 1, 9 on Sunday, meaning last Sunday. One of those turned into touchdowns. So I imagine he's probably pretty. He's on a lot of people's radar to pick up.
He's probably going to get picked up this week,
right? So if you want to pick him up, this is probably your opportunity to. Ramondre Stevenson again has more opportunity. He's going to have the ball in his hands more. So I'm on that side. If you really you hate what you have at receiver, I don't hate Troy Franklin here, but again, I don't necessarily know that I'm ever going to go into a week starting Troy Franklin and being confident about it, right?
Yeah, I think he's got one game, nuke potential, just like kind of Downs or Alec Ayamaner has. For me, one thing that was encouraging about Troy Franklin, and I feel like Mr. Wet Blanket over here. I didn't really love Troy Franklin as a prospect either, but he's been top 2 on the Broncos in the last 2 weeks in route rate and target share. That's really good. And I kind of thought maybe he was a similar guy to Mims, but after kind of looking at it, they're kind of playing Franklin more in that kind of Z flanker role, and Mims is just kind of doing punt return, gadgety stuff out of the slot. I like Troy. I just think that it's going to be really hard to trust anybody in the Broncos offense not named Cortland Sutton and Bo Nix for fantasy. I think he's got it really very volatile outcomes in his range. Yep. I think, he's going to give you – he's kind of like – I like to – one of your sticks in my brain that I had to Deshaun Jackson in fantasy when I was in high school, and he would give me 3 points some weeks, and he would give me 30 other weeks, and I just remember not liking that because I'm just like, it's the mystery box. What am I going to get from D-Jax this week? So not saying Troy Franklin's anywhere close to the player that Deshaun Jackson was, but I think he's in that similar fantasy role of some weeks he might get you 1 point, some weeks he might get you 22. He's kind of in that very volatile range where if he's playing on Monday night and you're down 20 and you need just an absolute Hail Mary miracle, throw Troy Franklin in there if you don't have any better options. Maybe he catches a couple long bombs. Maybe he gets you to the mountaintop. But I think that moving forward, it's still going to be Sutton and Nix pretty much in the Broncos.
Yep. I'm with you on that. Speaking of, it's kind of been the theme of the show, but fantasy football being kind of the stock market. You're trading to Emeka Egbuka, who's probably as high as any rookie is right now, for Brian Thomas, who is probably as low as any top guy is right now. He feels good about it. I don't hate this. I love Emeka Egbuka, but I mean we're facing a return of Jalen McMillan and Chris Godwin at some point. That we know what Mike Evans is always going to have his role. Where does that cut into Egbuka? Probably. So I'm fine trading him now. And I'm fine trading for Brian Thomas because again, I don't think Brian Thomas is totally out of this offense. I think as a good coach, you get your good players the ball immediately after having a bad game to kind of get back into it.
For sure, yeah. I think trading high, selling high on Egbuka here is good. I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. Maybe he's the best receiver they've got other than Mike Evans. Chris Godwin's coming off a big injury. Jalen McMillan's coming off a big injury. But someone named Ryan Miller scored a touchdown for the Bucs this week. Like, who's that? Is he my local real estate agent? But I don't mind this, especially since we know Brian Thomas, when he's right, is going to be the main number one first read target for Trevor Lawrence in the offense. Egbuka, some weeks, it could be the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin show. Some weeks maybe K. Dotton gets involved. There's a lot of players in the Bucs offense that can touch the ball. And there are in the Jags offense too, but I think Brian Thomas is at the top of that pecking order, whereas Egbuka is somewhere in the middle for the Bucs.
Yeah, it's probably ignorance on my part, but it's when Ryan Miller scored, I thought it was Scotty.
I assumed it was Scotty Miller.
All right,
to be honest,
we're on the same. Okay, good. All right. Smitty, got another question for us. Since Purdy coming back, I was thinking going Browning and handcuffing the rest of the decent quarterbacks left to make someone have to trade. Don't hate that, right? You kind of give the power in your hands, which everyone wants power. Smitty, he was the 0-2 guy, right?
Yes. Maybe he may have been the 1-1 guy, but yeah, I don't mind trying to bogart all the QBs and just say, hey, if you need a quarterback, you got to come grab one.
Right. So the obvious situation with that is who are you dropping for the quarterbacks?
Yeah.
But if you have drop guys for sure, should I get Merritt and pick up Wentz or Tyrod Taylor? I'm not picking up Tyrod Taylor. He kind of felt like Tyrod Taylor last week. Justin Fields goes down. Tyrod Taylor comes in like, oh, all right, we at least Tyrod Taylor's a vet. He can play a little bit. Did not look great, right?
Guess I have to play football now.
Right. So Carson Wentz is an interesting one. I think if you're making me pick between these two, I'm still going Merritt just because there's running back one opportunity there. But Carson Wentz is everything that we said about JJ McCarthy is still true with Carson Wentz, right? He's stepping into a situation where he gets Justin Jefferson, he gets a strong run game, he gets Kevin O'Connell play calling, he gets T.J. Hawkinson. I mean, Carson Wentz, we've seen. I mean, he was going to be an MVP at one point in his career. Now, is he still that same player? No, but I mean, right now, how much worse is Carson Wentz than what we've seen out of JJ McCarthy?
He can't be much worse. And Kevin O'Connell, to me, is just – I've said it from the get-go that no matter what, my McCarthy take's dead because either he's going to be good and it's I can always – maybe I can say it's because of Kevin O'Connell. Maybe it's because he's actually good, or he's bad and it's like, he's so bad Kevin O'Connell can't fix him. But, I don't – Kevin O'Connell got serviceable weeks from Josh Dobbs, man. Like, I think he'll be fine with Carson Wentz. I don't know if I'm running to the waiver wire to grab Carson Wentz unless it's like a two-quarterback league kind of situation and I need somebody. But I probably just stick with Bill, like you said. I think he's going to have opportunity. Touches are king. And even if he's not getting a ton of work inside the 20, I think maybe he, is going to get enough work. Maybe, he vultures touchdowns from Chris Rodriguez or, there's a lot of ambiguity there, especially now with Eckler down. So there's also the chance that he just ices Chris Rodriguez in that short yardage role and just, he's the guy. I'm not hitching my wagon to a 7th-round rookie anytime soon, but I think that of those three players, I think Bill Merritt's going to give me more serviceable fantasy production than Carson Wentz.
And I think Carson Wentz, just given that we really haven't seen him play good football over the last 4 or 5 years, I don't necessarily know that he's probably a high priority on people's waiver wire. So I think you can kind of mess around with some other players and take Wentz, even Wednesday morning when you wake up, when waivers go through, right? So I think right, Merritt's the guy here. Peter, I'll get to you in a second. I just want to bring up Nitro real quick because we're only on for a little bit here yet. But yes, we play Dynasty. We love Dynasty. Ashton's a big Dynasty guy. Been playing a decade now. So Nitro, if you have any questions, throw them in. We'd love to answer them. And Dynasty might be the best way to play fantasy football, to be honest.
Oh, I love Dynasty. I was redraft was fine. Like I didn't hate redraft, but Dynasty, I'm in way too many dynasty. I think I'm in like 6 dynasty leagues now.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I'm in way too deep, but what else do I have better to do? I don't want to touch grass.
Right. We got into a 32 team dynasty league, which is very fun.
We wanted to do one, but we only managed to get 18, and it is certainly something.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough but fun. Fantasy football needs variety. Variety is very fun. Pater's he's here all the time. Shout out Pater. Kyler Murray in a 1 quarterback league with Penix on the bench. Should I drop one to pick up Daniel Jones? Oh, this is interesting. If so, how much fab to spend on Jones? So as the resident Falcons fan in the company, how do you feel with Penix as a guy who maybe Atlanta's a little comfortable with kind of winning sloppy and letting Penix, kind of continue to develop a little bit into what we want him to be, with letting him go for a guy who's probably at the top of his game in Daniel Jones. Because I would rather drop Penix than Kyler Murray. But if you're making me pick one, I'm dropping Penix, but I don't know how I feel if I'm dropping Penix for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that you drop Penix here for Daniel Jones. I just, as far as fab goes, 7-8%, nothing too crazy, trying to get him. But ultimately, I think Daniel Jones is close enough with Kyler Murray. Maybe you start him some weeks over Kyler. It's kind of matchup dependent. To me, Penix is just going to be kind of like a floor play. Like, I need Kyler Murray's on bye week. I just pray that Michael Penix gives me like 16, 17 points this week. Whereas Daniel Jones, I think, could reasonably get you 18 to 20 any given week. I mean, he's been doing it against good defenses. For me, it's Jones for sure.
Yep. I think I'm with you on that. Let's go back to Smitty here. Would you trade away Nico for Tet and Javonte Williams?
Ooh.
So this is kind of that what we're talking about, that Jamar Chase, where you're trading a big for 2 guys who kind of on the come up or who are playing good football right now. So Nico Collins. Oh, I'm going to talk about Javonte Williams for a second. So Javonte Williams, like Jaden Blue is just not a thing. So you don't have to worry about. Miles Sanders is not.
Which is so surprising because Inches Sanders, like if you're getting iced because of Miles Sanders, like,
right,
dude, that's bad. Like, that's really bad.
Right. The what's working for Javonte Williams, and a lot of people, and I don't know if I myself included, like there's not a lot of people that know about offensive line stuff, run schemes and stuff like that. Dallas is very good at running the football. Their offensive line is full of just maulers who can, push forward, push defensive linemen like 3-4 yards back. But Javonte Williams has kind of been awesome this year so far.
He's catching the ball too. I mean, he didn't catch it. I mean, he only saw 3 targets in week 1, but that was kind of against the Eagles. And, you kind of have to just say it's the Eagles. But, I mean, last week against the Giants, of course, that game kind of just got Looney Tunes-esque towards the end. But, 7 targets is nothing to sneeze at from the running back position. He's still got 18 carries and probably has an even bigger day, but got vultured by Miles Sanders down in the low red zone. I think, that's – I love Nico. Don't get it twisted. Like, I think I respect Nico so much more as a real life football player than as just a fantasy player, because he is one of the last of a dying breed of these true X receivers that is going to go out there and run a dig over the middle and pick up 18 yards and smoke a safety on his way down. And I just love the way that guy plays football. But I think if we're playing fantasy here, and we are, I think it might be Tet and Javonte, especially if you need help at running back. I don't know how long Javonte can keep it going, but I don't exactly think that Miles Sanders is giving him a run anytime soon, and it doesn't seem like the Cowboys are in a rush to get Jaden Blue on the field.
Right. This is a situation where I think, and I know it's really hard to really wrap your mind around how your team is going to look week 17 compared to week 3, but if you're 0-2 and you really need something, you really need help, you really want to get a spark going, I love this trade. You're getting 2 guys who are good. If you're 2-0, I don't necessarily know that you need to make this trade. I think Nico Collins is fine to probably keep as your wide receiver 1. He missed the end zone last week, but the Buccaneers got down, or the Texans got down to 1 yard line and threw him like 3 straight passes. Now none of them clicked. I'm probably gonna die on a hill like this, but I'm still a CJ Stroud guy. I think he's fine. I think the offensive line is probably a little bit to be desired. I think there's a transition with an offensive coordinator here. I think CJ Stroud's fine. I think Nico Collins. I think they'd probably work it out because that division is very winnable, and I think they'd probably play a little bit more winning football come the the middle of the year. So if I don't have to, I don't think I'm trading away Nico Collins. But if I have to, I love this return for Nico Collins.
Yeah, for sure. Stroud's just out there playing as ethical of hoops as it gets.
Yeah.
13 completions for 207. We love to see it. We
Yep.
love to see a king take shots down the field. I'm with you. I think that if you need the help, if you're 1-1, 0-2, go ahead and send it. Complacency is not going to get you anywhere, especially in a game like fantasy football. If you're 2-0, I'd maybe sit on it. Just it's working for you so far. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Yep. Perfect. Nitro is Tyler Algier, who we talked about. He doesn't know how much, so he's on waivers. He doesn't know how much to put on him for Fab though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that Fab's always tough. I'm going to say probably no more than like 5%. If you've got 100 Fab bucks, throw 4 at him, see if you get him. Throw 2. It just kind of got to fill out your league. If there's 1 or 2 other guys that really need running back help, maybe you go with 4. If no one else really needs that much help, or if you're the Bijan owner and the Bijan owner is not looking to pick him up, maybe you only throw $2 at him. I think that 2 to 4% though is probably appropriate.
Yep. And I'm just going to go back to. I agree with you. I'm going to go back to if you're not the Bijan Robinson owner, you pick him up and you trade him to the Bijan Robinson owner. It's kind of a situation, right, where you spend money to make money. You spend a little bit on him and you get something probably a little bit more than what his value is worth in a trade. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Again, I'm going to say Tyler Algier is a guy who should be owned in all leagues, just given his role. Any more questions? We're going to quick run through 2 tight ends here. We're going to get out of here. So if you have any other questions, continue to drop them. Again, we'll be back Wednesday, Thursday. Check out flurrysports.org for tons of fantasy football advice articles, some DFS stuff. We're even getting some college football stuff out. So it's football season, man. It's nice to sit down and hear the pads pop. Football's great. Beer and football, whatever. We can get
Nothing better.
Yeah, right. So tight ends real quick. Our number 1 this week, Juwan Johnson, who is just so I won a championship with Juwan Johnson as a tight end streamer. Actually won a championship over Trevor with Juwan Johnson as a tight end streamer and Jerick McKinnon as a running back streamer.
That's beautiful.
They both put up 30 a week. Yeah, it was incredible. So Juwan Johnson is tied for second for 9 balls thrown his way in week 2 as a tight end. He only caught 9 targets for a tight end. It's hard to find many other tight ends that are getting that many, right? A touchdown again. Juwan Johnson feels like right now all he's doing is scoring touchdowns for 15 fantasy points a week. He's a guy who, at this point in the season, is I probably should know this, but I don't off the top of my head. I'm going to guess he's a top probably 4 fantasy football tight end in a full point PPR league. You're never going to find that, I guess, other than the Tucker Kraft guy who's on waivers. But you're not going to find that on waivers. If you need a tight end, you have to pick up a tight end. Like, it's hard to get much better than Juwan Johnson, right?
For sure. And in the leagues I'm playing in on Sleeper, at least, he is the tight end 3.5 and the tight end 2 in full PPR, probably only behind Tucker Kraft. Yeah, man, he's seeing some really elite stuff, and it's so weird to say that Juwan Johnson's seeing elite stuff at the tight end position, but he's getting a lot of first read targets for whatever reason in Kellen Moore's offense. We're not mad about it. And he should have been on a team last week. If you didn't pick him up last week, I know in one of my dynasty leagues, I happened to see him on waivers, and I threw him in my flex spot in a 2-flex league, and I had him and Tucker Kraft, and I put up the most points in the league that week. So, and that was with Lad McConkey and Khalil Shakir doing basically nothing for me. So I think that if he wasn't already picked up, you need to be the guy that's picking him up for sure. If you need help at tight end, even if you don't need a lot of help at tight end, let's say you've got Bowers, let's say you've got maybe Kittle's coming back in a couple of weeks, but you would need help there. But let's say you've got Bowers, you've got Tyler Warren, you've got Sam Laporta. There's no rule that says you can't flex a tight end. And I think Juwan Johnson, although maybe doesn't have the same ceiling as some of the other kind of crazy flex options you can get into, depending on how your roster's constructed, I think you can do a lot worse. Who would you rather have? Juwan Johnson, who's seeing probably the second most first read targets on a team that's going to air it out, or would you rather flex like Alec Ayominor or Kayshon Boutte or just one of these other guys love Kayshon Boutte, but he's seeing elite usage and he's getting a lot of targets.
Yeah. That's interesting. To your point, he should have been picked up last week. He's a guy who, again, is a guy who probably should be on leagues. If you're in a 12-team league, there isn't 12 good tight ends, so someone can pick him up and start him. I imagine if you need a tight end, you're probably going to have to pick him up because I don't know how much more becomes available come the season. without injury. So yeah, I'm with you. I think Juwan Johnson's the guy. Real quick, we're gonna do one less tight end here, and then we'll finish up on some questions. I think this is just a deep sleeper, but if you're really in need of a tight end, maybe you're in 16-team league, maybe a 16-team tight end premium, whatever. Jatavion Sanders is probably available in your league. I think he's on like 1% of leagues. I think
he's
probably
pretty widely available. For what it's worth, I had to start JT Sanders some last week, and it didn't feel great, but those fantasy points come out all the same. It's kind of the same deal. The Panthers are going to be pretty bad. They're going to play from behind a lot. They're going to air it out. He's seeing a 62% route rate, which is not great. But his target share did almost double. He only saw like 8.8% of targets week 1 and was almost up to 17% week 2. So that's nice. I imagine Xavier Legette not being great has got a lot to do with that. The only thing I would watch out for with Jatavion Sanders is if he starts to get more ingratiated in the offense whenever Jalen Coker comes back, maybe some of that work goes away. But I think if you need somebody as a spot starter right now, if you're just really in the weeds and need somebody, I think you could do worse than JT Sanders.
Yep, agreed. Again, to your point, like he's on the field, he had 9 targets last week. It's probably not going. There's probably empty targets, but who else on the waiver at tight ends getting 9 targets other than Juwan Johnson? So yeah, cool with it. Clifford Jones, real quick. He needs an RB2. Running backs are Henry, Hampton, and Tracy. We mentioned for waiver wire pickups, Tyler Algier, Bichelle Tootin. Pick up one of those guys. If either of them, I'm starting Hampton over both of them. So depending on who's available, I don't necessarily know that a running back's going to help you right now, given your waiver wire. Unless if someone like Jordan Mason's out there, of course. But if you can find someone who's filling in for an injury, but I'm not worried about Hampton yet. Right. Like I said, he's a rookie getting ingratiated into an offense. Well, we know we can put this face aside that Justin Herbert's going to lead the league in passing this year. We know that Harbaugh wants to run the ball. We know he wants to take guys and run, put all 11 guys in the box and run halfback dive the entire game, and try to wear him out. I think Hampton's fine. I'm not giving up on Hampton yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I think Hampton is fine. Najee, I think him and Najee kind of split work as the season goes along, but I think Hampton's just got younger legs and is maybe a little bit more talented. I'll just throw a really deep sleeper out there real quick. Maybe not super deep, but Woody Marks caught a lot of passes Monday night, and so if you're playing in PPR, throw Woody Marks on your bench. Nobody's going to go after him. You can probably get him for free if your league requires a minimum bid. Throw $1 at him, keep him for like 3 or 4 weeks. Nick Chubb is still there. He's still a thing, but we don't even know if Joe Mixon's going to play football this year.
Yep.
And, Damian Pierce was active week 1. He was a healthy scratch last night. And Woody Marks, caught a bunch of passes. He had 51 yards on just 4 touches. That's pretty explosive. If Marks is the pass complement to Nick Chubb, PPR catches are king. If he's catching you 4 balls for 37 yards every week, that's 7 fantasy points right there. That's a usable week if you need it.
Yeah. Yep. That's actually pretty interesting because I think we saw last night there are opportunities in this Texans run offense. I don't love their offensive line pass blocking, but I think they're fine run blocking. Like we saw Nick Chubb kind of went back to Cleveland Browns Nick Chubb on it. If he can hit a hole, he can hit a hole.
Made my heart happy, man. I love Nick Chubb.
It was nice to see. It's hard to find someone who doesn't like Nick Chubb. So it's nice to see him back in the end zone. We're gonna do. Let's see. We got one more here. Camden Christensen. To start off, redraft thoughts. He just traded Nick Chubb, speaking of Nick Chubb, Jalen Waddle, George Kittle, and Patrick Mahomes for Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kyler Murray. It's Kyler Murray, Devon Achane, Alvin Kamara, Puka, JSN, Ertz, Rome, 12-team, half PPR. I have no depth.
Wow.
So, I'm fine getting rid of Kittle. I'm fine getting rid of Waddle. I'm fine getting rid of Kittle. Yeah, I think this is a great trade.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. I mean, you traded a lot of – Kittle's great, but he's not helping you the next 2-3 weeks. Waddle, who knows? I love Waddle, but the Dolphins just seem like they refuse to use him. Nick Chubb, a old running back. Mahomes is awesome, but I was kind of big on the Mahomes resurgence this year, but Worthy being hurt week 1 kind of hurts that a lot. But man, I love getting JSN. He's getting peppered by Sam Darnold. He's going to see a ton of targets. Half PPR, I think, hurts him maybe a little bit, but I still love this team. Puka's an absolute smash this year. Achane and Kamara is awesome. You said you don't really have depth. That's what waivers are for. I mean, there's new guys that pop up every week. I think this starting lineup is really strong. Hey, if Jawan Johnson's on your waivers, you swap out Johnson for Hurt. That's a championship lineup to me.
Yeah, I mean the weak spot here, and it's not even really a weak spot, but right, you don't have a big name tight end. Zach Ertz, like all he does is
he's fine. I mean, he's unexciting. I mean, he's like white milk. He's not. I mean, he's he's going to catch you 4 passes for 60 yards. He's going to catch the ball and fall down, but it counts all the same.
He's been doing the exact same thing that he's been doing since his rookie year, and that's just being the reliable guy over the middle who is going to score a touchdown more often than he's not going to score a touchdown. So cool. And then Rome Odunze is also a fun, kind of high risk, high reward kind of guy to throw in at a flex, where you're going to get, you can do that with an HN and Puka, who are going to give you sustainable points. Just looking at the trade, I think Jason and Kyler, out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players in this trade, Kyler and Mahomes is a little bit of a wash to me, but I think you get 2 out of the 3 best guys in this trade. So
yeah, I mean, you're getting the best receiver by far. Like you said, Kyler and Mahomes wash. Kittle's great. Obviously, he's kind of injury prone at times, and I mean, you managed to turn Nick Chubb and Jalen Waddle into something, so good for you.
Yep. Clifford, one more before we get out of here. Trade A.J. Brown for George Pickens and Jalen Warren. So again, this is kind of like that Nico Collins that trade the big name for guys that are playing well right now. If you need help at running back, I don't hate this. Again, where are you 0-2, 2-0? 2-0, you not trade. I don't think you trade A.J. Brown. 0-2, I think you are. Pickens, I love. Again, he's kind of the opposite kind of personality, Nick Chubb, right? But again, it's how can you not like George Pickens? So I don't hate this trade. I'm not hitting the panic button on A.J. Brown yet. I think Jalen Hurts, like that, right? That's kind of the point of Philadelphia, is to run the ball. But we saw A.J. Brown we've seen him explode with Jalen Hurts before they've won a Super Bowl together. I'm not giving up on A.J. Brown yet. But again, if you're in need where you have to, win this coming week, I don't hate this trade.
Yeah, I'm kind of like you. I don't hate it. I love George Pickens. He's such a malcontent. It's just so awesome. It's just, there's something about it. I'm a Tennessee fan, and so I have a little bit of shade and disrespect towards Georgia players, but there's just something about George Pickens you can't not like. And Jalen Warren, I'm like you. If you need help at running back, I like this trade, especially full PPR. I think Pickens and A.J. Brown are kind of in the same mold, as in they're going to be kind of asked to pick up big downs. They're not necessarily going to get peppered with targets. Pickens looked great last week. He kind of disappointed a little bit week 1, especially in dynasty circles. Once Pickens got traded to the Cowboys, it was like good luck. He was worth as much as Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. But I think it just kind of depends on your team. If you're 2-0, I think you just kind of stay pat, wait for the Eagles to figure it out. If you're 0-2, maybe you pull trig and see if you can get something out of Pickens. I think for what it's worth, the Cowboys are going to run. I think the Cowboys having a run game is really unexpected for a lot of people. I for one, was very sure the Cowboys were not going to be able to run the ball, and they were going to be just airing it out. Dak was going to throw 600 times. But Javonte Williams has looked, pre-injury form, and I really liked him as a prospect, and it's nice to see that those birds have come home to roost, so to speak.
Yeah, hell yeah. So before we get out of here, you mentioned a Tennessee fan. So I was on Tennessee last week. I have a buddy, my buddy's brother-in-law, I guess it would be. He just graduated from Tennessee, and he's a diehard Tennessee fan. So yeah, I'll take 3.5, Tennessee 3.5, and it ended up working out, which is great. So that was a fun bet. And I had a great, not that I'm bragging, but because I don't get to sports bet a lot, it's not legal in Wisconsin, but I was up in Michigan last week. So I threw on Alabama. I took 17.5 over Wisconsin, which is great. I took Ryan Williams 100 yards, which was great. I took Ryan Williams a touchdown, was great. And then I parlayed Ryan Williams 125 and a touchdown. And so I made a play off for Ryan Williams this week.
Yeah, that's nice. It's a funny thing. Tennessee sports betting is legal, but we can't do props on college players. So when it comes to, it's very strange. So when it comes to college, all we get is lines, straight up game lines, team totals, things like that. I have no huge claims to fame when it comes to betting football. Every once in a while, I hit a what was he cooking parlay where it's like it'll be like 15 legs plus 10,000, and I hit one every once in a while. I hit one on golf last winter.
Nice.
I know I hit one on the NBA in the finals 2 years ago. It was like $5 to win like $1,500, which was really sick.
Nice.
Football. I mean, I hit a 6-leg money line parlay this week on NFL. And all it was I was going to do a Wong teaser, which for those of you that maybe are not in the know, Wong teaser, you're just kind of teasing below key numbers in football, 3.5, 6.5, things like that. And instead of my buddy, because I'll do these crazy like 5-leg, long teasers just for fun. And my buddy was like, "Why are you doing a teaser? You can just parlay that and probably get better odds." And I started to type out, "No, I get better odds this way." And I thought about it. I was like, maybe I need to check. And it was like on the teaser, it was like plus 330. Doing the parlay was like plus 360 something. I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I do get better odds." So
Yeah.
it was like Cardinals, Cowboys. I don't even remember who all it was. It was Cardinals made it spooky at the end. I was sitting there like, "Yep, this is how I lose for sure." Last leg is Cardinals. Bryce Young's about to lead this comeback 100%. But luckily, they came through for the boy. Won me my little $20, and I got to take the fiance to Chili's afterwards. It was really nice. We had to go. We had big eating out money right then.
And that's all that matters, right? So I think after I won, I stopped in Cousins and picked up like two double cheesesteaks. So yeah, I'm with you. Like my gambling winnings usually go to my dinner the next day, so it's fun. But again, okay, that's it for us this week. I guess I can take Clifford. We'll leave Clifford on. He's never mind. That's our week 3 waiver wire pickup show. Any questions? Again, leave them in the chat. Leave them in the comments on YouTube, on Twitch, on Facebook, on Twitter, wherever you're finding this. Leave a comment. We'll for sure get to them. And if you were in the comments asking about a trade, if you do make the trade, let us know what you did last week. I'm curious to see, especially like we mentioned with how much can you get for Jamar Chase right now? Any of those like Nico Collins for 2, AJ Brown for 2. Interested to see if that turns into anything. So definitely leave it in the comments. Ashton, I appreciate you coming on. I imagine we'll get you on more. We'll figure out a schedule because this is a lot of fun. It's always fun talking ball. So again, thanks for being on.
For sure. Appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah. All right. Tune in Wednesday, Thursday. We'll have shows the rest of the week. Thanks everyone and have a great night.